Colleagues, we now turn to election of committee conveners. Where more than one nomination for convener of a committee has been received, there will be an election conducted by secret ballot. I will give you instructions on this shortly. Where a single nomination has been received, the election of that member as convener of the committee will be confirmed if no other member objects to their election. As this is a secret ballot, anyone who wishes to object to the election of any candidate should press the point of order button on their console when I call out the candidate's name. This is very important, as it will mean that only I will be able to see if an objection has been made. I'll now work my way through the names of the individual candidates. Climate Action Committee. Stuart McMillan has been nominated as convener of the Climate Action Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Stuart McMillan's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Criminal Justice Committee. Alan Smith has been nominated as convener of the Criminal Justice Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Alan Smith's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee. Callum Kerr has been nominated as convener of the Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Callum Kerr's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Economy, Tourism and Energy Committee. Duncan Massey has been nominated as convener of the Economy, Tourism and Energy Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Duncan Massey's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Education and Gaelic Committee. Karen Adam has been nominated as convener of the Education and Gaelic Committee. If any member objects to her election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Karen Adams' election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Equalities, Human Rights and Civil Justice Committee. Katie Hagman has been nominated as convener of the Equalities, Human Rights and Civil Justice Committee. If any member objects to her election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Katie Hagman's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Patrick Harvey has been nominated as convener of the Europe External Affairs and Culture Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Patrick Harvey's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Claire Hawkey has been nominated as convener of the Finance and Public Administration Committee. If any member objects to her election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Claire Hawkey's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Helen McDade has been nominated as convener of the Health, Care and Sport Committee. If any member objects to her election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Helen McDade's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Neil Bibby has been nominated as convener of the Public Audit Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Neil Bibby's election as convener will be subject to election by secret ballot. Paul Sweeney has been nominated as convener of the Public Petitions Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection, and Paul Sweeney's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Bob Doris has been nominated as convener of the Public Service Reform Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Bob Doris's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Mark Ruskell has been nominated as convener of the Rural Affairs Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Mark Ruskell's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Craig Hoy has been nominated as convener of the Social Justice, Housing and Local Government Committee. If any member objects to his or her election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I have received an objection. Craig Hoy's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. Willie Rennie has been nominated as convener of the Transport Committee. If any member objects to his election as convener, please press your point of order button now. I've received an objection. Willie Rennie's election as convener will now be subject to election by secret ballot. So that's 15 out of 15 will be subject to secret ballot so far. I've also received 2 valid nominations for convener of the Standards, Procedures and Public Appointments Committee. The nominations are Jenny Minto and Emma Roddick. The election of candidates will be subject to election by secret ballot. Members may cast their votes in Committee Room 5, located outside the chamber on the first floor. Under Rule 11.10b.3, I've designated Irene Fleming, Head of Scrutiny, to carry out the function of supervising the vote, and I've also designated Tracy White, Head of Legislation and Parliamentary Operations, as a substitute should Irene become unavailable. You should either, with our 2 candidates, you should vote for either a candidate or abstain. Where there's a single candidate, you should vote yes, no or abstain. So polling stations open from 2:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. this evening. I will repeat that. That's from 2:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. this evening. The count will take place tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in Committee Room 5. Candidates and their scrutineers may monitor the count if they wish, and I'll announce the results at the start of business tomorrow. Okay, colleagues. Point of order, Helen McDade.
Sorry, I just wonder what the process is. Could you explain the process of once that vote's happened, if there's only one candidate, so as we know what we're voting no or against? Yes,
well, if that candidate actually receives a majority of votes, then that candidate will become the committee convener. If its majority is against it, then they won't. And it's opened again for further nominations. But I have to make clear that the nominations for a further member will have to be from the party from which that person was originally selected. Yes, Mr Kerr.
For guidance, Presiding Officer, would it be possible for the same person to be nominated again in those circumstances?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item of business is general questions, and the first question, Patrick Harvie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government, in light of comments made by the First Minister in Parliament on June the 2nd, that the Scottish Government prioritises active and safe travel routes and the encouragement of cycling, walking and wheeling, for what reason Transport Scotland reportedly reduced the revenue funding for regional transport partnerships, people and place programmes by 60% during the election purdah period?
Cabinet Secretary Stephen Flynn.
I thank Patrick Harvie for his question, because it gives me the opportunity to restate what the First Minister said, that as we do support cycling, walking and wheeling, which is why we have £226 million worth of investment going into sustainable and active travel. That's something that I'm very proud of, and I'm sure he's very proud of as well, as this government ensures that it balances its budget this year.
Patrick Harvie.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry that the Cabinet Secretary didn't choose to answer that by explaining why this cut took place and why it took place during the election purdah period. I've returned to my job to meet local community organisations who are doing the work that the Scottish Government says it wants to see happen, who are now seeing that their entire funding has been pulled from under them. Unless this decision is reversed, community groups around the country that are delivering the work the government says it wants to see happen will lose their staff, lose their skills, lose their expertise and lose all trust in the Scottish Government prioritising this issue. Will the Cabinet Secretary reverse this decision urgently?
Cabinet Secretary.
Mr Harvie will be pleased to know that £3.2 million is still going to RTPs. £1.6 million will be available for local direct awards, and £1.4 million is going to bikeability schemes, something which all Arweans can benefit from. And of course that forms part of a wider £226 million worth of investment from the Scottish Government in sustainable and active travel. That's a good thing for his constituents and a good thing for mine.
Supplementary, Julie McDougall.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I recently met with the Chief Executive for Forth Valley College. It was incredibly harrowing to hear about how apprenticeship courses are being cut.
Sorry, that's not relevant to this question.
Apologies.
This is a supplementary to the question
Apologies.
asked by Patrick Harvey.
Okay,
Could you
sorry.
change your seat?
Thank you.
Lloyd Melville.
Apologies, Presiding Officer. I think I pressed my button in error, thinking that I would have to do that for my own general question later on.
I realise everyone's finding their feet, including me, so remember you only press your button if you want a supplementary to the general question that's been asked. Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, I hope the Cabinet Secretary would agree that one of the safest ways to get students from Kirkliston in my constituency to their catchment high school in South Queensferry is via the council-funded coach service that's been operating well there for several years. But a decision was halted today in City of Edinburgh Council to remove this service for up to 200 pupils. Given that public transport timetables do not marry up with the start of the school day, this decision could have led to hundreds of extra car journeys every day. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that families paying Edinburgh Council tax rates in Kirkliston should enjoy the same level of council-funded transport services as every other community in the city?
Not quite on the nose for the general question, but Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer, Presiding Officer. If Mr Cole-Hamilton wishes to write to me, I'll write back to him as swiftly as I possibly can.
Question 2, Joe Fagan.
To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Board regarding the outcome of the service delivery review that is due to be considered on the 22nd of June.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Presiding Officer, I met the SFRS Board Chair on the 4th of June, where we discussed the overall objectives of the Service Delivery Review and the consultation and outreach process undertaken by SFRS. Recent large fires in Glasgow and Fife have been dealt with commendably by our frontline firefighters, which illustrates the importance of having a properly resourced fire service. However, the fire risks have changed and the SFRS must adapt its services to meet these changes. To protect the integrity of the governance process, the Scottish Government has not yet had sight of the final review recommendations, which will go to the Board for consideration on the 22nd of June, and the SFRS has committed to publishing the rationale for the proposed changes along with a detailed analysis of the public consultation ahead of this.
Joe Fagan.
Thank you. There is profound concern about the potential outcomes of the Service Delivery Review, not least from the firefighters themselves and their union. Given the gravity of the decisions about to be made, would the Government agree that there should be full parliamentary scrutiny and that Parliament should have a say on what happens next before the review is implemented? And to that end, would they consider committing Government time to a debate on the next steps?
Cabinet Secretary.
These are independent decisions for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service to make. However, it is open to Parliament to take a view on these matters in the way that is normally taken on investigations through the committee structure or otherwise, and obviously it is for other parties to determine what they use their opposition time for. I know that the SFRS local senior officers will be engaging directly with MSPs on the review, and my understanding is also that the review is not about making reductions in the number of firefighters or appliances which have been in place since September 2023. It's about ensuring the correct spread across the country to respond to increasing wildfires, grass fires and flooding as a result of climate change.
Stephen Kerr.
But ministers previously told Parliament that almost £1 million of specialist wildfire pumping units would be deployed within weeks, and a Scottish Conservative FOI later revealed they were still not operational. Now, during Scotland's worst wildfire season on record, does the Minister accept, does the Cabinet Secretary in fact accept, that this was a failure of operational preparedness, and can he confirm whether all 8 units are now fully operational?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, that is something I'm more than happy to explore with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and ensure that we are in a position to respond to the changing nature of fire and flood risk across Scotland. The very successful prevention activities of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, as well as local authority building standards and planning, mean that house fire situations have fortunately reduced, whereas due to climate change we're seeing a massive rise in grass wildfires and flooding, for which the review is about ensuring the resources are in the right place to meet with that demand, as Mr Kerr has outlined.
Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you, Cabinet Secretary, for your responses. I appreciate these are independent decisions to be made by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, but I'm interested to know how the Scottish Government is looking at the cumulative impact of these changes, for example, on other rescue services like the Coast Guard, where I understand there are proposals to move to a purely volunteer service, and given the significant impact this could have on constituencies with so many coastal communities like Argyll and Bute, would the Cabinet Secretary be willing to meet with me to discuss this further?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, the short answer is yes. I would be happy to meet with Ms Minto or indeed any other member to discuss this matter further. The issue of there being multiple draws from organisation and often small rural populations is not a new challenge, and the SFRS works collaboratively with a range of partners, including the Coast Guard, on response and resilience in rural areas, and many fire stations share facilities with organisations like the Coast Guard, and Scotland's safety and resilience relies on people to step out, carry out those roles, such as being an on-call firefighter, and I'm very grateful to those men and women for doing so. The SFRS is flexible in setting on-call periods so that wherever possible, multiple volunteer roles can be accommodated, something I'm very familiar with given my island upbringing, and I know Ms Minto's experience as a constituency MSP.
Question 3, Patricia Gibson.
To ask the Scottish Government when it expects a GP walk-in centre to open in North Ayrshire.
Cabinet Secretary Angela Constance.
Presiding Officer, I have committed to expanding the walk-in service programme and will set out how I intend to do this within the first 100 days of this government. Health boards were previously asked to generate proposals which considered the needs of their population, taking into account local issues and circumstances, and our experience so far will inform how we commission the next 14 services.
Patricia Gibson.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that reply. North Ayrshire's people have Scotland's lowest healthy life expectancy. The average adult remains in full health until just 53 years old. Over 28% of people live with a long-term health condition, 6% higher than the Scottish average. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that there is an urgent and compelling case, in view of these facts, for a GP walk-in centre in Cunningham South to allow my constituents greater access to healthcare and advice?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, Mrs Gibson makes an important point about improving health inequality by improving access to healthcare, and of course this government is committed to providing a walk-in service for North Ayrshire. And North Ayrshire walk-in service is one of the 14 additional services that was announced, bringing the total of walk-in services that we're focused on delivering to 30. As I said, I will set out how I intend to do that over the next 100 days, and health boards were previously asked to generate proposals to meet the needs of their population, and our experience thus far will inform how we commission the next 14, and I would welcome the member sharing any proposals that she has with NHS Ayrshire and Arran.
Michelle Campbell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Work is well underway in preparation of Glasgow's first walk-in clinic opening. Can the Scottish Government offer an update as to when this wonderful resource for the good people of Kildonald will be open?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I expect the Glasgow site to be open later this month. I very much appreciate the hard work of the Health Board to get these services up and running, and I'm sure that the member will join me in welcoming the opening of these sites and thanking our hard-working NHS staff for delivering these.
Craig Howie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It is 77 miles from Sankir to Stranraer and takes a minimum of 2 hours by car and at least 4 hours by bus. Given that is the journey that my constituents are going to be expected to make to access the GP walk-in centre in Stranraer, doesn't this expose this policy to be a pre-election ploy designed to distract attention from a primary care system in crisis?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, it is of course disappointing that Mr Hoy doesn't welcome the prospect of a GP walk-in service for Stranraer. And the important point here, Presiding Officer, is that the purpose of GP walk-in services is to help free up capacity in the primary care system so that people can be seen quickly across constituencies and across regions. And this allows and supports GP surgeries to maintain continuity of care for patients who have ongoing conditions. It is, of course, a pilot programme and there will be valuable learning from this and it will be subject to full evaluation.
Question 4, Don Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the progress of the business plan for the A90-A937 Lawrence Kirk Junction Improvement Scheme, including when it expects the scheme to move from the development pipeline to the delivery pipeline.
Cabinet Secretary Stephen Flynn.
Can I thank Dawn Black for her doughty campaigning in relation to this matter and reassure her that the Scottish Government is committed to delivering a new grade-separated junction at Lawrence Kirk as part of a package of additional investment alongside the Aberdeen City Region deal. I can advise that Transport Scotland continues to press forward with the necessary procedural and legislative steps to complete the statutory authorisation process. It is essential that these steps are correctly completed. Delivery of the improvements at Lawrence Kirk can only commence if it is approved under the statutory procedures, at which point a timetable for its progress can be set in line with the Scottish Government's annual budget-setting exercises.
Dawn Black.
And I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer. As the scheme was approved in principle for funding in 2018, and since the last objections to the project were resolved in early 2025, does he appreciate that the restrictions on life, that the lack of a flyover at this notoriously dangerous junction over the A90 dual carriageway between Lawrence Kirk and the A937 Mary Kirk Road has for local people and businesses? And will he agree to meet with myself and local campaigners to discuss firm funding and timelines further?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, and Ms Black will know that I'm very familiar with the junction and drive through it on an almost weekly basis. It is important, though, that we allow the statutory process to be followed, and what I can do is say to her and indeed to the campaigners that once that's been completed, I am of course more than happy to meet with them.
Question 5, Kayleigh Kinross-O'Neill.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what is being done to help eligible applicants for adult disability payment access the support that they need in light of the reported fall in the proportion of applications approved from 57% down to 34%.
Cabinet Secretary Shelley-Ann Somerville.
Since adult disability payment was introduced, 45% of applications have been awarded. More than 498,000 people receive ADP, with £6.1 billion paid to eligible people. And that's a testament to a Scottish social security system that is compassionate and person-centred, enables disabled people to access support that they are entitled to. Our approach includes the UK's first online application for disability benefits, and Social Security Scotland can gather supporting information on clients' behalf and offers online, paper and telephone applications. In addition, face-to-face help is in every local authority, and we fund independent advocacy through Advice Direct Scotland.
Kayleigh Kinross-O'Neill.
I thank the CABSEC for her answer. I know especially that Social Security Scotland is definitely an improvement of the UK's DWP scheme, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. There's also disparity across local authorities and issues where people's social security statements or the lack of are the gateway to vital services, for example, national entitlement cards or access to work. Can she assure me that any reviews and further work done will ensure that all disabled people, including neurodivergent people, will be able to access the support they need?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for this question and can I welcome the challenges that she puts to the Government to ensure that the agency continues to be a learning organisation. I'm very proud of what it has delivered, Presiding Officer, but we are always keen to ensure that we improve. I hope I can reassure the member that the agency is looking at the reasons why the approval rate has changed over time. With some of the examples of that is looking at the age profile, where there's been repeat applications. And also, I think we do have to bear in mind that we have actually encouraged applications for the first time ever. So we are encouraging people to apply. They then do have to go through a robust system to see that they are entitled and eligible to the benefit. But if it would help the member, I'd be more than happy to meet with her along with the agency to talk about some of the wider issues that she raised in her supplementary question. There's a lot to go through there, Presiding Officer, that I can't get through today.
Question 6, Lloyd Melville.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to support farmers, crofters and agricultural businesses in Angus South and throughout Scotland in light of the reported rising input costs, pressure on farmgate prices, increased employer national insurance contributions and concerns regarding changes to agricultural property and business property relief.
Cabinet Secretary Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This Government is committed to supporting active farming and sustainable food production through direct payments, regardless of choices made elsewhere. The 2026 payment strategy maintains the timings for direct payments and Scottish Rural Development Programme funding, which over the coming 5 years will, per the Rural Support Plan, provide certainty, preparation and investment, ensuring our farmers and crofters have the confidence to invest and prepare for changes. The Scottish Parliament voted in favour of calling for the UK Government to reverse the national insurance increase, acknowledging that an increase will likely result in higher costs, job losses and increased prices.
Lloyd Melville.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Having visited agricultural businesses in my constituency like Newton Farm, I know how squeezed farmers and crofters across Scotland are feeling, often by issues out with the scope of this Parliament. So can the Cabinet Secretary set out what engagement the Scottish Government has had with the UK Government on those reserved issues, and whether she agrees that family farms need certainty, fairness and practical support if we are serious about food security and sustaining rural communities?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, our engagement with the UK Government is ongoing. We've been consistently calling on the UK Government to reverse the damaging and ill-thought-out decision to increase the employer national insurance contributions. And of course, agriculture isn't the only sector that's affected by that. Our officials are also working alongside UK Government counterparts to ensure that Scottish tenant farmers remain exempt from inheritance tax. And we remain committed to supporting our farmers and crofters by giving them certainty through our support to active farming, food production with direct payments, and have brought forward payment dates to pay farmers and crofters at the earliest possible opportunity to assist with cash flow and give them certainty that is lacking in other areas.
Question 7, Emma Roddick.
To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the Big R economics report, Building a Sustainable Future for the North Coast 500.
Cabinet Secretary Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Bigger Economics Report demonstrates that the North Coast 500 makes a significant contribution to the Highland economy by generating almost £100 million annually and supporting over 1,300 jobs. Indeed, every £1 invested has returned £36 to the local economy. However, the report also underlines pressure on infrastructure and residents, as well as poor visitor behaviour. We are committed to working with partners to build on the benefits of the route while addressing these obvious challenges.
Emma Roddick.
I was very concerned to read that such a significant percentage of residents, a majority in the North Coast 500 area, are negatively impacted, though of course not surprised as somebody who lives near the canal in Inverness myself. While some people clearly benefit significantly from this route, many more are struggling with negative impacts. The balance between the needs of tourists and residents in the Highlands has not yet been struck. What more can the Government do to encourage and support sustainable tourism and discourage the bad behaviour that we are so frequently seeing on the North Coast 500?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. There is always that conflict between the desire to ensure that people can enjoy the wonderful scenery that Scotland has to offer and, of course, the challenge that imposes upon those who live in those communities. It's why the Government has created the Rural Tourism Infrastructure Fund. I know there's been some projects on the North Coast 500 that have been able to benefit from that, and we'll continue to work positively to ensure that the positive impacts of the North Coast 500 are realised and the negative impacts are mitigated to the best possible way.
David Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The North Coast 500 has been a success for the North Highland economy, but it has also exposed a road network that is struggling to keep pace. So across the Highlands, there's a £233 million gap between what the Council is spending and what it needs to spend in order to repair our roads. We need long-term investment, not short-term patching. So will the Minister therefore commit to providing the national level of funding that is required for this nationally important route? And will he also agree with me that the Highland Visitor Levy, if implemented, should be British not only investing in infrastructure, but also supporting local businesses and the competitiveness of our visitor economy?
Cabinet Secretary.
Excuse me, Presiding Officer. As much as I'm tempted to do so, it's not for me to tell any local authority what to do with the money that it has, or indeed the money that it may potentially raise through any levy. But I'm sure his words will have been heard very, very loudly by the local authority councillors in his area.
Question 8, Alan Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it's made of the implications of the EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism and what discussions it's had with the UK Government in mitigation of them.
Minister Tom Arthur.
The Scottish Government supports the aim of the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanisms, or CBAMs, to reduce carbon leakage. We recognise, however, that these mechanisms, whether in the UK or the EU, present challenges for businesses. We have therefore met businesses in affected sectors to understand their concern. Those include compliance costs and competitive disadvantages exporting to the EU, despite efforts to cut emissions. We have written to UK ministers to share those concerns and have consistently urged the UK Government to link UK and EU emissions trading schemes, which should provide EU CBAM exemptions for Scottish businesses.
Alan Smith.
The Minister for his answer, but surely he shares my frustration that the UK is finding itself between a rock and a hard place on CBAM and with everything else, and has very little influence on how CBAM has come to be, and that Scotland's best future is an independent state within the European framework.
Tremendous experience and expertise to this chamber, given his previous roles. We are certainly committed to engaging constructively for UK Government. I will be meeting with my UK ministerial counterpart in the coming weeks. But he is absolutely right to highlight the catastrophic damage that Brexit has inflicted upon not just the Scottish but the UK economy. And of course the best future for Scotland is as an independent member of the European Union.
And Duncan Massey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Just a supplementary question. I note from the some of the CBAM discussions ongoing that fertiliser is going to be caught up in some of these border adjustments, which is likely to massively increase the cost of fertiliser, obviously a key input to all our farmers. Has the Minister reviewed this particular input, and what measures will the Scottish Government look to help resolve these costs for farmers?
Minister.
The member raises a very important point. The Scottish Government convened a roundtable with businesses and affected sectors earlier this year. My predecessor had written to the UK Government prior to dissolution. He hadn't received a reply, but I have now written to the Minister of State as of this morning, and I'm hoping to meet with him in the coming weeks. And in doing so, I give the undertaking to Parliament that I will raise the issues that have been not just brought forward to the Chamber this afternoon, but the many other representations that I have received in this matter, and I'm happy to keep the member up to date in that regard.